What's up, everyone? We're going to be going through the best NBA player props on PrizePicks today. Now, don't forget to like this video, as it does let me know to continue to give you free picks every day. So make sure to like this video clicking that button down below. And if we get 600 likes, I will do another video for tomorrow. Now, I did want to show you the results from yesterday's picks from my exclusive Discord group. And as you guys see, we actually got 20 picks correct, which was absolutely insane. So we're on a huge hot streak. But if you want to get 20 picks right like me, win more bets and receive the best picks from some of the best bettors in the world for less than a cup of coffee, you can access the exclusive Discord and meet some of the best sport bettors in the game by joining my Patreon. Should be linked down below in the description. Once you join, you'll have complete access to the Discord and can start winning more bets today. So make sure to join my Patreon using the link in the description. And here's one of our members who just signed up and won himself $1,377 just yesterday. Another member who won $387 for the 5th day in a row since joining my Discord. So guys, if you want to win big money like our members, the link will be in the description. So go join the Patreon to have access to the Discord group. And I will be continuing to upload every single day on this channel the best bets and props. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my daily uploads. So quick shout out to Anti1 McIntyre 2513 who said great video, let's cash out tonight. And also shouts out to Kaisuke 1501 who said hey yo, I don't know if I'll be in the next vid, but you will definitely be in the next vid. So shouts out to him. And if you do want to win a shout out in the next video, all you have to do is comment down below on this video and like it, and you can be in the running to win a shout out in the next one. Alright, so let's get straight into the first pick. And when it comes to these picks, I'm not saying to chuck all of them into a parlay and hope for the best. Pick and choose the ones that you like and the ones that work best for you. So the first pick we're going to be talking about is none other than VJ Edgecombe, and this one is for 19.5 points and rebounds, and this one is for more. Now looking at VJ, we actually have seen him go on the over in 1 out of the last 5 games. Looking at those 5 games, we see on January 27th, faced off against Charlotte Hornets, had 15 points and rebounds there. January 28th, faced off against the Milwaukee Bucks, had 20 points and rebounds. January 30th, faced off against Sacramento Kings, had 10 points and rebounds in that matchup. Then had 18 points and rebounds against New Orleans Pelicans on February 1st. Then February 3rd, faced off against the LA Clippers and actually had 8 points and rebounds there. So really interesting to see from VJ Edgecombe. As we mentioned, he hasn't really gone on the over quite consistently over the last 5, but we also do see that his average over the last 5 is 14.2. Now, coming into this matchup, we do also know that VJ Edgecombe and the Philadelphia 76ers have themselves a really good matchup against none other than the Golden State Warriors. Now, it is definitely going to be an exciting matchup between both of these teams. Looking at where both of these teams do lie, starting off with Philadelphia 76ers. Philly do actually come in at the 6th spot in the Eastern Conference. They actually have a record of 28 wins and 21 losses. That's a 57.1% win percentage there. And on top of that, they are 15-13 from home, 13-8 from away, and are currently on a 4-game win streak. So really interesting to see there. Now, obviously, looking at Golden State Warriors do come in at the 8th spot. However, they're in the Western Conference and they have a record of 27 wins and 23 losses. That's a 54% win percentage there. They're also 17-8 from home, 10-15 from away, and are currently on a 1-game losing streak. So really interesting to see there. But obviously, looking at a player like VJ Edgecombe, he does face off against a Golden State Warriors team that do rank, starting off with points allowed, they do rank 10th, allowing 114 points per game. And then rebounds allowed, we also do find that the Golden State Warriors find themselves ranking 17th, actually ranking there and having a 44.9 rebound allowed per game. So looking at this matchup, obviously Warriors do rank pretty decently in points, a little bit worse in rebounds. So why do we still like the over for this? Now, a big reason being is that when we look on a per position basis, we do see a little bit of a different story. We actually do see that when it comes to Golden State Warriors, they do a poor job at restricting points and rebounds to the guard position. And we definitely see someone like VJ Edgecombe being able to take advantage of this and go on the over here. Now, yes, VJ has gone on the under quite consistently over the last 5, but I do have to say that I do believe that, his recent matchups have definitely been, somewhat a little bit more tougher for him. And also he has just had a little bit of a cold streak as of lately. And that's why coming into this next matchup, we are seeing that obviously his line, or he has gone under on his line quite consistently, that we do believe it's brought this line a little bit too low, that now there's a lot more value actually to go on the over. And that's why we are sticking to the over for this situation here. Now, when we look at VJ facing off against the Golden State Warriors so far this season, we have actually seen them face off against each other. Now, in that matchup, we did see him, and this was actually on December 4th, actually have 10 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists there. So he did go slightly on the under, as we've seen before. But obviously, there will be times where players don't really hit their, I guess their more probable outcome. That was definitely one of those games, and that's why we now believe that the line's a little bit too low. There's a lot more value actually to go on the over, and we are expecting a pretty decent and sort of big game for someone like VJ. So for that reason, we are definitely expecting the over for this situation for someone like VJ Edgecombe here. Now, when we look at VJ and also what the pros do have to say, now when we look at points and rebounds, we see him for a little bit of a different line. They have him here for 21.5. So a very, very different line there. We also do know that since we are getting him at 19.5, we do believe that we are getting him for a little bit of a steal price, or in that sense, because obviously the line's a little bit higher here. But what we do see is that the projection they do have is 21.2. Now, they have him at projected for 21.2, and although it does say under here, technically for us, that is the over, because we have him for 19.5. So for us to be able to get him at that line, I think is absolutely fantastic. And that's why coming into this next game, we should see him go on the over here. Now, looking at VJ over the last 15 games, yes, he has struggled just a little bit. He's only gone on the over in 26.7% of these matchups. But as I mentioned before, it really does come down to matchup. And with this matchup against the Golden State Warriors, we should see him be able to go on the over here, especially with the Warriors having experienced some injuries so far. So for that reason, we are definitely liking the over for this. Injuries with Philly as well definitely play a huge part. So coming into this one, VJ Edgecombe for 19.5 points and rebounds, 4 more, I think is a fantastic pick. So getting into the next one, we're going to be talking about Kyle Filipowski. Now, Kyle Filipowski, great player as we all know. Now, this one is just for assists. So assists only for actually 2.5, and this one is for more. So we have a lot of mores lately, but this one is a great one because we see that Kyle Filipowski has gone on the over in 2 out of the last 5 games. Now, looking at those 5 games, you see on January 25th, faced off against Miami Heat, had 3 assists there. January 28th, faced off against the LA Clippers, had 2 assists in that matchup. Then 3 assists against the Golden State Warriors on January 29th. January 31st, faced off against the Brooklyn Nets, had 2 assists there. Then 1 assist against Toronto Raptors on February 2nd. So really, really interesting to see. Obviously, looking at Kyle Filipowski, we have seen him go on the over, in 2 out of those 5, but his average over the last 5 is also 2.2. So really interesting to see because Utah Jazz have themselves a very, very good matchup against none other than the Indiana Pacers. Now, looking at where both these teams do lie, starting off with Utah Jazz, Utah actually come in at the 13th spot in the Western Conference. They actually have a record of 15 wins and 35 losses. That's a 30% win percentage there. And on top of that, they are 10-17 from home, 5-18 from away, and are currently on a 6-game losing streak. So it has been a little bit tough for Utah Jazz there, but we also do know that they face off against a Pacers team where Pacers do rank 15th in the Eastern Conference, and they have a record of 13 wins and 37 losses. So that's a 26% win percentage there, 10 from 17 from home, 3-20 from away, and are currently on a 1-game losing streak. So really, really interesting to see because both of these teams definitely have struggled. Now, Pacers have struggled just a little bit more, and looking at where Indiana Pacers do rank when it comes to assists allowed, we do know that Indiana Pacers do rank when it comes to assists allowed. They do rank 7th. So they allow 25.2 assists per game. Now, the reason why we still do like the over for someone like Kyle Filipowski coming into this game is due to the fact that when we look at someone like Kyle, who does play usually that center position, we do actually see that Indiana Pacers do struggle at restricting assists to his position. So we definitely should see someone like Kyle be able to go on the over in this case. Now, when we look at Utah Jazz as well, we are also seeing and expecting Jusuf Nurkic not to play in this game, Keontae George. We also have Jordan Georges Niang, Elijah Harkless, and also Walker Kessler all expected to be out. So Kyle Filipowski does have quite a bigger role to fill coming into this game. Now, they are also all expected to be out, so none of them are game time decision. All are definitely out for this game. So we definitely see Kyle taking a little bit more of a bigger role coming into this matchup for sure. Now, looking at Indiana Pacers and their matchup against Kyle in the past, we have seen them face off against each other on the 11th of November last year. Now, we actually saw Kyle do a decent job and be able to go on the over in that situation because he did actually get 16 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists in that matchup. So that's honestly fantastic to see. So coming into this next one, we are definitely expecting the over for this situation here. We definitely see someone like Kyle being able to do it once again like he did in this one and go on the over. Now, looking at what the pros do have to say about it, we do see that they have him for the same line of 2.5, and they also have him favored for the over as well. They have him for minus 137, which I think is fantastic. So the fact that it does work out in our favor there, I think is great to see. But what we also do know when it comes to someone like Kyle Filipowski and also the 2.5 assists, we do also know that the projection that I do have for him is 2.1. So it is a little bit slightly on the under, unfortunately, coming into this game. But we are going a little bit against the projection here, but we are actually agreeing with, the actual bookies. So that's going to be interesting to see there. So coming into this one, we do very, very much like the, over for this situation. Now, when we look at the last 15 games, yes, we have seen him only go on the over in 5 out of the 15 games. Only going over in 33% of those matchups. But as I mentioned before, coming into this one, we do also know that there are a lot of big injuries for Utah Jazz, and we definitely should see someone like Kyle be able to go on the over here. So for that reason, Kyle Filipowski for 2.5 assists, 4 more, I think is a fantastic pick. All right, so getting into the next one, we're going to be talking about Andre Drummond. Now, Drummond has been a great player for Philly, and this one is for 16.5 points, rebounds, and assists, or PRA, and this one actually is for more. Now, looking at Andre Drummond, we actually have seen him go on the over in 1 out of the last 5 games. Now, looking at those 5 games, we see on January 12th, faced off against Toronto Raptors, had 5 points, rebounds, and assists there. January 15th, faced off against Cleveland Cavaliers, had 16 points, rebounds, and assists. January 21st, faced off against Phoenix Suns, had 24 points, rebounds, and assists. Then 10 points, rebounds, and assists against Charlotte Hornets on January 27th. Then January 30th, actually faced off against none other than Sacramento Kings and had 0 PRA there. So pretty interesting to see. Obviously, looking at that, we have definitely seen him struggle just a little bit. But what we also do know when it comes to this is that his average over the last 5 is also 11. Now, looking at, a player like Andre Drummond and Philadelphia 76ers, we have touched on this matchup before, but just to quickly remind you, they face off against the Golden State Warriors. Now, looking at where both of these teams do lie, just to remind you all again, 76ers come in at the 6th spot in the Eastern Conference. They have a record of 28 wins and 21 losses. That's a 57.1% win percentage there. And on top of that, they are 15-13 from home, 13-8 from away, and are currently on a 4-game win streak. So really, really interesting to see there. Obviously, 76ers have definitely, stayed in a very good playoff spot. And Warriors are also still fighting to continue to stay in a playoff spot because they actually come in at the 8th spot in the Western Conference, and they have a record of 27 wins and 23 losses. That's a 54% win percentage there. And on top of that, they are 17-8 from home, 10-15 from away, and are currently on a 1-game losing streak. So really, really interesting to see there. Obviously, Golden State Warriors aren't really doing that well in a sense that, yes, they're on a playoff picture, but a lot of people thought they would do a little bit better than that. But looking at Golden State Warriors defensively, we do know that they rank 10th when it comes to points allowed, actually allowing 114 points per game. Then assists allowed, we see that the Golden State Warriors come in a pretty interesting position as they come in at the 14th spot, allowing 26.8 assists per game. And then rebounds allowed, we also see that Golden State Warriors rank pretty poorly as they rank 17th, allowing 44.9 rebounds per game. So as we mentioned before, Golden State Warriors definitely has been a little bit tough for them. Yes, they do rank pretty well in points, But we do also know when we look at actually Golden State Warriors, when we look on them at a per position basis, we see that they do a really poor job at restricting points, rebounds, and assists to the center position. And this is due to the fact that when we look at someone like Andre Drummond, who does play that big man position, we do know that Golden State Warriors have definitely struggled at, just defending big men in general. This has kind of always been their problem as a Warriors team. They haven't really been able to find a great defensive big man, and it's definitely, kind of allowed a very, very big gap for bigs to really, take advantage of this. Now, when we look at some of the injuries for this game, it definitely does pan out as well, because obviously we know Paul George is out. Now, when we look at Golden State Warriors, we have Moses Moody, who's expected to be out, LJ Cryer, Stephen Curry, Seth Curry, and Jonathan Kuminga. And we all know as well that Jimmy Butler is definitely still out. So obviously, the Golden State Warriors that we do know isn't really there right now. They have definitely struggled just a little bit. So that's why even the defensive numbers that we have taken a look at, we aren't really expecting those same sort of numbers due to the fact that they've gone through so many injuries right now, and it's definitely been a little bit tough for them. So coming into this next one, we are expecting a little bit of a different Golden State Warriors team, but the fact that they do struggle at, restricting to centers, we definitely see someone like Drummond taking advantage of that. Now, looking at Drummond in their last matchup, we did actually see him play on the 4th of December last year, had 0 points, 2 rebounds, and 0 assists. Now, he did only play 17 minutes in that game, and I do believe when it comes to Andre Drummond, he did have himself quite an off game, and that was definitely one of those, sort of games there. When it comes to Andre Drummond's usage rate, we also have seen him actually improve over the season and actually have a little bit of a better sort of usage rate out there as time has gone on. So for that reason, coming into this next one, we do very, very much like the over for it. And when we look at Drummond and what the pros do have to say for it, now they have him for 17.5, so I have him for a little bit of a different line there. So it is kind of difficult to go off what the bookies are saying or to kind of compare the two. But what we can see is that they have the projection for 15.3. So they actually have them for the under. And that's why we are going a little bit against the projection here coming into this game for sure. And then when we also look at the last 15 games, we've also seen him go in the over in 33.3% of those matchups. So pretty interesting to see. Obviously, looking at someone like Andre Drummond, yes, he has had games where he definitely has struggled, but coming into this next one, we should definitely see him be able to take advantage of it and go on the over here, as they are facing, unfortunately, a very lackluster, Golden State Warriors team that have lost a lot of their defensive presence. So for that reason, Andre Drummond over 16.5 points, rebounds, and assists for more, I think is a So getting into the next one, we're going to be talking about none other than Lauri Markkanen. Now, this one is actually for a PRA, so points, rebounds, and assists for 36.5, and this one actually is for less. Now, looking at Lauri, we actually have seen him go on the under in actually 2 out of the last 5 games. Now, looking at those 5 games, we see on January 9th, faced off against Dallas Mavericks, actually had 44 points, rebounds, and assists there. Then January 13th, faced off against the Cleveland Cavaliers, had 42 points, rebounds, and assists. January 28th, faced off against the LA Clippers and had 28 points, rebounds, and assists. Then 23 points, rebounds, and assists against Golden State Warriors on January 29th. And then February 2nd, faced off against the Toronto Raptors and had 40 points, rebounds, and assists there. So really, really interesting to see. Obviously, looking at, Lauri Markkanen and also this matchup, we do know that Lauri does face off against none other than Indiana Pacers coming into this game. Now, we do see that his average is 35.4, so it is slightly on the under as well. But looking at this matchup, and yes, we have touched on it before, but just to quickly remind you all again, Utah Jazz do come in at the 13th spot in the Western Conference. They have a record of 15 wins and 35 losses. That's a 30% win percentage there. They're also 10-17 from home, 5-18 from away, and are currently on a 6-game losing streak. So really, really interesting to see from them there. Now, looking at Indiana Pacers. Indiana have definitely struggled quite a bit because they come in at the 15th spot in the Eastern Conference, and they have a record of 13 wins and 37 losses. So that's a 26% win percentage there. They're also 10-17 from home, 3-20 from away, and are currently on a 1-game losing streak. So really, really interesting to see. Now, looking at someone like Lauri Markkanen coming into this game, we do know that he does face off against an Indiana Pacers team that do rank 25th when it actually comes to points allowed. That do also, we do see that has 118.4 points they do allow per game. When we look at assists allowed, we also do see that Indiana Pacers do come in a pretty interesting position as they rank 7th. We touched on that earlier, having a 25.2 assists per game. And then rebounds allowed, we also do find them ranked 28th, allowing 47.1 rebounds per game. So coming into this one, why do we still like the under for it, even though Indiana Pacers do rank pretty low in some categories? Now, looking at this matchup, we do actually know when it comes to Utah Jazz, we know Yusuf Nurkic is out, Keontae George, Georges Niang, Elijah, Walker Kessler all out. And because of that, Lauri Markkanen is pretty much the only last remaining sort of star player for this team. And what we do see when it comes to Indiana's defense time and time again is that their usual game plan is to slow down and focus defensively on their, or the other team's most valuable player. And we definitely see that being the case here. We are expecting Indiana to really force and really push, Lauri Markkanen defensively, in a sense that they are going to try to restrict him as much as they can and do it for as long as they can as well. And that's why we are definitely expecting the under for this situation here. Now, yes, Indiana overall aren't really a greatest, defensive team, but we still are expecting a lot of defense on that. And when we also look, Lauri Markkanen, of course, it does say here he does play forward or center. We tend to see him play that power forward position, and we do know that Indiana actually do a great job against the power forward position, however, due to players like Pascal Siakam. So we definitely do like the under for this situation coming into this game. Now, we did actually see their last matchup against each other was last year on the 11th of November, and he actually had 35 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists in that matchup. So he did actually do pretty well, and because of that, we did see him go on the over compared to this line. And yes, he had himself a great game, but I do believe when we look at Utah Jazz back then, they were a little bit more of a different team. They were having less injuries, and because of that, Lauri Markkanen was able to kind of slip through the cracks and get a high usage rate there. But now that it is really only Lauri Markkanen out there in a sense of that star power, we are expecting a lot of the defensive pressure to be solely and focused on him. Now, when we look at Lauri Markkanen, when we look at the pros and what they do have to say here, we do see, they have him points, rebounds, and assists for 35.5, so slightly a different line there. Now, they do have him favored for the over at that line, but obviously it is a different line, so we can't really go off that specifically. But looking even further, we do know the projection they do have is 35.2 points, rebounds, and assists. Now, that is actually for the under, so we are actually agreeing with the projection here. As I mentioned, we can't really go off the bookies, but that definitely does work out in our favor there. When we actually, customize the average to the line that we have, which is 36.5, we've actually seen him go on the under more in a sense of a 50-50, going on the under in 47% of those games. So this is as 50-50 as it gets for the last 15 games. So it really does come down to matchup, and that's why with the matchup that Indiana Pacers do have, or they do have against Indiana, we are definitely expecting the under for it. So, for that reason, Lauri Markkanen, 36.5 points, rebounds, and assists for less, I think is a fantastic pick.